Welcome back to the Engage A podcast here with Logan Berner again and a new co-host on the show. We have Nevan Anderer. Nevan, say hello to everyone.
What's up? How we doing, boys?
All right, we are going to be going over the Week 10 college football playoff. I have what is this, 6 games pulled up in a spreadsheet. Nope, it's 7. I can't count, guys. Oh no. Oh well. We're going to start off with the Georgia-Tennessee game. Logan, do you want to give your take on this first?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Number one, number two, college game day is going to be there. Going to be in an electric atmosphere. I'm actually excited to watch. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty good one.
Any analysis that you want to give, or maybe what your prediction of the game is going to be?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to watch. Obviously, Georgia's defense, arguably the number one defense in the nation, depending on who you're talking to. Tennessee's offense, one of the top offenses in the nation. I'm going to give the slight edge to the reigning champs here. I kind of like Georgia to stick it out. I think what they've done this year has actually been incredible to follow up their national title. And while I do like what Tennessee brings, their experience, their leadership, I think the Georgia defense ends up being too much. And kind of what we saw last year, I think Georgia's offense does just enough to be able to push them over the top in these kind of games. So I'm going to take Georgia in a pretty close one, 27-24 over Tennessee.
All right, Nevan, you want to give your analysis?
I think you hit the nail right on the head, Logan. Looking at these statistics we got for this game, Georgia, as you just said, has a very strong defense, and it's up there for being the best in the nation. But I mean, Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt have been tearing defenses apart all season. But I'm going to go with you. I think that Georgia's defense will be too much in this one. And a couple stops or a couple turnovers from Hendon Hooker, and this one could get out of hand real quick for the Bulldogs. So I'm taking Georgia 35, Tennessee 27.
All right, news broke earlier this week about Nolan Smith being injured, and he's kind of been like the Georgia's biggest disruptor, not necessarily getting sacks, but like getting pressure on the quarterback and getting tackles for loss. And this Georgia team's not the greatest pass rushing team. I heard a stat earlier listening to one of my podcasts saying that they were like 113th in sack efficiency and like 74th in pass rush. Luckily, I don't think it's going to affect them that much because Georgia is one of the greatest pass coverage teams, and two, Tennessee kind of runs this quick passing offense where Hendon Hooker only looks at his first read or two and doesn't really have too many plays develop for them. This Tennessee team offensively is amazing, and defensively, I mean, I don't know, against their one good offense, they kind of let up 49 points, but they're also just going back and forth. If Stetson Bennett can continue just to be an efficient quarterback, I feel like this Georgia team and they can just keep running the ball. They're averaging 5.7 yards per carry on the year, which is really good. I think if they can just maintain good field position, not get too behind, and just kind of play the dominating Georgia football that we've seen from the past couple of years, I think they could come out with the win. I'm going to take Georgia 34-30.
Yeah, I think I know we're unanimous here, so I won't say too much. But Tennessee's done a really nice job of closing out football games this year. Played a close one with Bama, close one with Florida, close one with Pitt. I think Georgia also, when you're playing one of the best closing teams, it's not going to be as easy to score those kind of late in game touchdowns that Tennessee's been able to win on this year. And I think the Georgia defense is obviously probably by far the best defense Tennessee's faced all year.
And Tennessee's coverage, I feel like Georgia's got pretty good blocking as well, especially run blocking. But Tennessee's pass rush has been the only good thing, and I feel like if Stetson Bennett can improvise a little bit, get outside, the Tennessee pass coverage isn't that great. So I feel like they can also take advantage of that. Plus, they got playmakers like Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers. Any other last thoughts? Anything maybe for the Tennessee
I know
side?
we're all in agreement of Georgia's going to take this one, but I think it's worth noting and worth being said the Tennessee's schedule that they've endured so far. I mean, they played 19 Kentucky, number 3 Alabama, number 25 LSU, and number 20 Florida. So I think that's worth noting. And then I also think it's worth noting that Georgia hasn't allowed, in the last 5 games at least, over 22 points. So
Yeah, I mean, that Florida game, they kind of like let Florida coming back into it and played a half of football, as I mentioned on Tuesday's episode, and they ended up just dominating again. Hendon Hooker is averaging 10.7 yards per attempt on 21 touchdowns, one set on one INT, and has a pretty high quarterback rating. So, and I mean, last week against who did they play last week? Tennessee. They played Kentucky. They were proved that they could be a physical running team too with Jalen Wright and Small. So, I don't think they'll be able to do it against Georgia because I haven't. I mean, Michigan won it last year in the college football playoff. I know this was a different Georgia team, but they were one of the best running teams in the nation and couldn't do crap against the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, transitioning into another top 10 SEC matchup, we have number 10 LSU and number 6 Alabama. Logan, do you want to start off with this one again?
Yeah. I think this is one of the more interesting matchups because this has been a really up and down LSU team. Beat a really good Ole Miss team last week, obviously blown out by Tennessee. The loss to Florida State earlier in the year. I do think this is going to be another close football game here. I think LSU is hot, but I just don't think Bama loses here. 13.5-point favorites. It is on the road. But, hey, I think what Bryce Young's been able to do since he's returned, obviously Gibbs on the ground's been super fantastic too. And I think the Bama offense is just too overpowered for LSU. I'm going to take Bama 42-28 over LSU in this one. I think it goes pretty high scoring for Bama, but I don't see LSU's defense being able to make enough stops to shut down Bryce Young and the Bama offense, which has actually really been clicking since Bryce Young's been back.
Nevan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you here. First off, losses for Saban's teams in this recent decades are hard to come by. They're far and few, but I don't think that they're going to lose this one. Although this LSU team, as you stated, is hot, and they just knocked off number 7 ranked Ole Miss pretty dominantly. I mean, they beat them by 25 points, so that's a dominant win. But just, I mean, this Alabama team, I don't know. Like, when Saban loses a game in a season, it's usually the last or far until he loses again. So I'm taking Alabama 42, LSU 20 in this one. But I don't think LSU will dominate this one at all, really. I think Alabama's going to get out early and control this one for the majority of this one.
I agree with Nevan with your take on Nick Saban. When his team loses in this season, it's really hard to come by, another loss in that season unless it's in the college football playoff or national championship. There's only been a few times as of recent. The last time Alabama didn't make the college football playoff is when Tua got hurt. But last season when they lost to Texas A&M, they still ended up winning the SEC championship and going to the national championship.
Right on. That's exactly what I thought of.
So I completely agree there. I don't think LSU has the big playability here. I mean, Jaden Daniels has been playing a lot better as of late than at the start of the season. He's not too inefficient or anything. He's got a good touchdown-interception ratio. He's taken 25 sacks this year. So, I mean, if Alabama can keep Jaden Daniels to make decisions and keep getting pressure, I know Will Anderson's going to be a huge impact player this game. LSU's run game isn't the greatest, and I feel like just the Alabama playmakers, it seems that these Alabama receivers, someone keeps stepping up every week, whether it's Burton, Brooks, Holden, all these guys. And Jahmyr Gibbs is also going to be a big playmaker for the Crimson Tide as well. So I think Alabama ends up winning this game. Honestly, I think this LSU team's kind of overrated. And I think Ole Miss was overrated at the start of the season because they couldn't blow out teams like Troy or really any of their non-con Group of 5 opponents early in the year. And they just didn't have like that wow factor when you watch them with your own eyes.
Yeah, I think it's important to know here, too, that Ole Miss team, that LSU, pounded by 25, everyone thought that was a huge win. They only beat Texas A&M by 3 points last week. And
who had like 4
A&M
players suspended because of the smoking weed incident in the locker room. Sorry if that's probably not the most appropriate thing or best way to put it, but that's the truth and what happened.
Well, yeah, so I just think, kind of a banged up Texas, well, not a banged up, but limited Texas A&M team. It was on the road for Ole Miss, I'll give them that, but it was not an absolute domination from Ole Miss. So you kind of question how good this Ole Miss team really is. They don't really have those big blowout wins. And probably the best win on the schedule is Kentucky, who has continued to falter here as we keep going through the season. So we'll see. But
worth noting for LSU that they had a huge early test. Well, not early, but recent test against Tennessee. I mean, not Tennessee's the number one team in the nation, but at this point Tennessee was number 8, and Tennessee pounded them 40-13 loss. But I mean, that's a home game for LSU too. So, I mean, I think this very well could be another one of those games. Like, I think Alabama could take it to LSU.
Yeah, and I think Bama's offense is structured pretty similarly to Tennessee. You saw it in their shootout there. Both teams can put up points, and I think this is kind of going to be similar to what Tennessee was able to do to Bama. Maybe a little closer. Seems like LSU always finds a way to keep it close against Nick Saban, but I don't think it's going to be anything too close here.
I think if LSU were to have to win this game, Jaden Daniels would have to be efficient, and they can never fall behind 14 point or even 10 points. Like, it's got to be within that range, or LSU just doesn't have the big playability or the defense to really stop the Crimson Tide.
I know you said this before in your podcast, Noah, but it could be worth noting that, I mean, our guy, Nathan Diber, is kicking off. So.
Yes. Nathan was our kicker last year for the 2021 Heartland varsity football team. Ended up playing all 4 years there, and currently is the kickoff starter at LSU, and he's recorded a tackle this season. Shout out Nathan Diber.
Could be worth noting that LSU might be starting not too far out from the field, have a long field to go.
Yeah. Moving on, we have Texas versus Kansas State. Kansas State ended up picking a huge win last week against Oklahoma State, blowing them out 48-0. Nevan, why don't you start off with your analysis on this game?
Yeah. I think first off, Adrian Martinez that used to play at Nebraska, plethora of years watching him there. But now he's with this Kansas State offense, and I think this Kansas State offense is a lot better than people give themselves credit for. I mean, they're in the Big 12, and a lot of people, with myself, agree that the Big 12 doesn't play much defense. This Kansas offense can put up points. I mean, they played Oklahoma State last week, and they beat them 48-0. That is, one, a phenomenal offensive showing, putting up 48 points. But two, I mean, they held Oklahoma State to none. They couldn't put up a single point. So I think, me personally, I have Kansas State in this one. But I do think this one could be close. Maybe like a 31-19, 31-21 game. Somewhere around there. But, yeah, I got Kansas State in this one. But I think Texas could stick around longer than people think.
Logan, you want to give your analysis on this?
Yeah, I think this is kind of, to be honest with you, probably the hardest game for me to pick this week. This is two teams that you really kind of don't know who they are, at least for Texas. You know, they lost to Bama. Everyone started saying how they were this great team, followed it up 2 weeks later, lost to Texas Tech. Okay, maybe they're not. Well, then they absolutely pounded Oklahoma, followed it up with the win over Iowa State, and then all of a sudden lost to Oklahoma State last week. Very similar on the other side with Kansas State. Coming in as potential Big 12 big-time favorites, end up losing to TCU on the road. Of course, they had that second loss to Tulane earlier in the season as well. But the 48-0 win over Oklahoma State, I think, is pretty eye-popping for me to see Adrian Martinez. But more importantly, the Kansas State defense, which hasn't been fantastic. It's a Big 12 defense, take it for what it's worth. But really step up and do something. I think this is going to be lower scoring than people think. Both teams can play defense at least semi-well for Big 12 standards. I'm going to take Kansas State by a hair, but I think this is a really close football game. I'm going to go 28-24 Kansas State, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Texas was able to come out here and pull this out.
Do we know if Will Howard or Adrian Martinez is starting?
I believe I was reading before it was Adrian Martinez, but I'm not 100% on that.
Okay, so I think this game's honestly going to be one on the ground with Bijan Robinson and then Deuce Vaughn, and if Adrian Martinez plays, I think the team that can probably have the ball more, have more possessions, put themselves in better spots, have longer drives is probably going to win this football game. With Adrian Martinez, he hasn't been like that great of a passer. He doesn't turn the ball over, but he also only averages 6.5 yards per attempt. I think the receivers on this Kansas State team have been improving every single week, and they had an awesome showing against Oklahoma State, who's typically not a bad defensive team, but I know they don't have Jim Knowles anymore. So I don't know if if that was all him or whatnot. I think Quinn Ewers is probably going to be, if Quinn Ewers can take the top off against this Kansas State defense and get Worthy, Whittington, and other playmakers involved, I think this can be a easier offensive game for Texas. I'm going to actually take Texas in this one. I think they're going to end up winning around 37-32, 33. It's going to be a close game, but...
No, I was just about to say before you start talking about the run game, I think if Texas can get Bijan Robinson going, I mean, over the season he's averaging 5.7 yards. That's a lot of yards. But looking at it, against top 25 teams, he's still averaging 4.4 yards. So if Texas can get Bijan Robinson going early and keep him going often, that could be the Texas key to win this game. And like you just said, if they can get Bijan Robinson going, Kansas State's going to have to focus on Bijan Robinson stopping him. And that's when I think Quinn Ewers could use Xavier Worthy or these other receivers to take the top off, like you just said.
Right. I feel like Texas is just going to have to play a complete offensive game and then do decent defensively. It looks like this Felix Undike Uzma kid he has 7.5 sacks on the year, which is pretty good. That's 1.5 more than Will Anderson. Kansas State has 23 sacks on the season. So, I mean, maybe this team gets a lot of pressure on the quarterback and forces Quinn Ewers, who hasn't been all that accurate, throwing a 57 completion percentage so far this season. If they can get pressure on the quarterback, they maybe can come away and slip and make them make mistakes early and take this game away too. It kind of just matters what's going to happen at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I will flip it. Talking about Bijan Robinson, I feel like we got to give some love to Deuce Vaughn here.
Right,
Fantastic season. You look at the difference between the win and the loss to TCU, Deuce Vaughn had 12 carries. You go to the win against Oklahoma State, Deuce Vaughn had 22. So I think the big thing for Kansas State is going to be getting that run game going, finding a way to get an early lead. From what I am reading right now, it looks like Adrian Martinez is going to play. Adrian Martinez did not play in that TCU game. So I think a backup quarterback, kind of a negative game script, not being able to run the football kind of hurt Kansas State. Last week, back at full strength, you really lean on that run game. It worked out. I don't know if it particularly matters who is at quarterback for Kansas State this week. I think if they can get Deuce Vaughn going, I think they're going to run away with it.
Also, Texas only has 8 turnovers forced on defense all season, while I saw Kansas State had 11 interceptions. So, again, forcing Quinn Ewers to make mistakes. Both teams have only allowed 10 sacks this year, though, which is good from a pass blocking standpoint. Moving on, we have Clemson and Notre Dame. Maybe thought like 2 weeks ago this wouldn't matter as much for a Notre Dame team, but this game Notre Dame just had a good win against Syracuse, who ended up playing close with Clemson in Death Valley a couple weeks ago. Logan, you want to start us off here?
Yeah. So I think I kind of touched on that Syracuse team back on Tuesday. Questioned a little bit their legitimacy. I know they played it close with Clemson. We'll see. I don't see Clemson losing here. I like what they've been able to do offensively, kind of turning it around, and this is, back to that classic good defensive Clemson team that we've seen get into the college football playoffs in the years past. You look up and down the Notre Dame team, they are playing better football. Still the loss to Stanford 3 weeks ago, kind of head-scratching there, that 2-point loss. But following up back-to-back wins. I know Notre Dame's kind of hot. Take it for what it's worth, but I think Clemson kind of runs away with this pretty easily. I'm going to go Clemson 45. Sorry, not 45. I'm going to go Clemson 35, Notre Dame 17. I don't think this game is going to be as close as people are going to try to make it out to be. Notre Dame's home field advantage might help them out a little bit, but I don't see Clemson losing this football game really in any scenario.
Nevan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you here. Clemson has not put up less than 27 points yet this season. Looks like they're averaging about around that 30-point range. To be exact, 37 points they're averaging. But their closest game was last week against Syracuse, and although DJ Uiagalelei or whatever, although he did not have his finest game, they still managed to pull out a win against the top 15 ranked team, which I think speaks volumes because great teams, when star players struggle, still manage to win games. And I think that Notre Dame may be able to stick around early on, but then I don't think that they're going to be able to hold on and keep up with Clemson towards the end. I think that if Clemson can get the running back Shipley going early, I think that'll be a huge key to get them and get Uiagalelei to settle down early on and settle in and get going. So I'm going to take Clemson 35, Notre Dame 21. I got them putting up a little more points than your prediction, Logan, but I think we're on the same page here for this one.
I don't think the passing game for Clemson has mattered too much just because of Shipley and the way he is able to control the offense for the Clemson Tigers. Obviously, Uiagalelei is going to have to make throws, but I also don't think. I think the problem with Syracuse is the first play they were already playing from behind when they threw the pick six. They ended up coming back and driving, but Notre Dame was able just to control the heck out of the clock and just able to keep punching it down Syracuse's throats and taking leads, and ended up making it really hard because Del Rio ended up playing for Syracuse, and it just did not go well with Schrader to begin with. So I feel like they were playing from behind. I feel like if Clemson can do the same thing to Notre Dame with Drew Pine at QB after Ty Buckner got hurt early in the season, and they also have had Avery Davis, the receiver, out the whole entire year, I just don't think this Notre Dame offense could keep up with the Clemson offense if they play up to their potential. Notre Dame has a solid defense, but I mean the front seven for the Clemson Tigers is crazy, getting in the backfield constantly causing disruption. I feel like Clemson honestly can dominate this game and just shut it down at the end of the first half. I'm going to go Tigers 38, Notre Dame 17. I think this is really not a close game. I think Notre Dame was just kind of feeding off the success early that they had and able just to punch the ball down Syracuse's throats, who didn't really have that good of a defense like the Clemson Tigers defense.
I mean, to put it, go ahead, Nev.
I also think it's worth noting that this will be Brian Breese's second game back after that break for family issues and whatnot. So I think if him and his fellow Clemson defensive players can limit Notre Dame, I think Clemson will be doing just fine.
Yeah, I mean, to put it as bluntly as possible, I think the way to beat Notre Dame is to make Drew Pine beat you, because quite frankly, I don't think he can. He hasn't shown much to be able to prove. Like you said, Noah, that Syracuse game was just absolute domination from, the opening pick six. So I think I don't see any way that Notre Dame's going to pull this out. I think they're going to be playing from behind, and Drew Pine, I just don't think is able to elevate his offense well enough to be able to take advantage and get a win.
Right on there. I just feel like this Clemson team's way better than what they showed against Syracuse a couple weeks ago. And I like the point that you made, Nevan, about good teams still find a way to win even when everything's not going as planned to their script. I think that's and Clemson's shown that. I know Nevan over here is the only Michigan fan in this call right now, but
of course.
I mean, who was it? Who was I gonna say? When I don't even know what I was going to say now. Dang. Oh, yeah, the college football playoff rankings. I feel like that game also just proved, even though they didn't dominate Syracuse, Syracuse was also highly rated at the time and undefeated. And it didn't go Clemson's way where they had to put in Cade Klubnik, and they were still ended up pulling out with the win.
Yeah, right on, man. I feel you there.
Moving on, we have Oklahoma State versus Kansas. This being played at Kansas. Oklahoma State coming off a very devastating loss to the Kansas State Wildcats, who was previously mentioned. Looking for a bounce back win here. Kansas, ever since losing Jalen Daniels, they haven't been able to get on the right foot, losing 3 in a row to TCU, Oklahoma, and Baylor. Playing in some decently close games within 2 possessions of all of those games. How do you feel this game goes for either the Jayhawks or the Cowboys? What do you kind of want to touch on here? We'll start with Nevan.
Yeah, the way I know we talked about it in the Kansas State game, but I mean, losing 48-0 to Kansas State, as I'm talking about Oklahoma State here, losing 48-0, I find it pretty unlikely that Oklahoma State would come out slow or come out flat in this one. I also think it's worth noting that, as you said, Kansas, has lost 3 in a row here. And the TCU loss was close, I'd say. 7-point. But the other two, I don't know. I think Kansas has not looked like the team they started off the season look like. And I think if Spencer Sanders gets rolling early, that this Kansas team could be in a world of hurt really fast. Oklahoma State doesn't have the most overpowering run game, averaging 141 yards per game. But just as a whole team, they're putting up 39 points. That's their average this season so far. That's going to be hard to beat for Kansas. So I think Kansas's defense in this Big 12 will not be enough to stop Oklahoma State. And I think Oklahoma State's going to run away with this one. I got them winning this one 42, I'm going to say 21.
All right, Logan, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, Kansas has lost 3 games in a row. Why not make it 4 here? I don't think this Kansas team was nearly as good as they were hyped up to be. Those 5 wins at the beginning of the season. Tennessee Tech, West Virginia, Houston, Duke, and Iowa State. I don't think how many of those 5 teams are playing in bowl games come season's end. I think Kansas finally reached some stiff competition. Their defense kind of got to hand it to them. But I do believe this is less on Kansas and more on Oklahoma State. I don't think this offense comes out completely flat like it did. I fully expect Spencer Sanders to come back out sharp, throwing the football well, running the football well. I just think this Oklahoma State offense kind of clicks on all cylinders, and quite honestly, a must-win game if you want to stay in the Big 12 title race here. So I think this is going to be pretty much domination here. I will go 42. I'll give Kansas another score from what Nevan said, 42-28 here, because I do think Kansas's offense is able to put up points, but I just think this is going to be absolute domination here from the Oklahoma State offense in a game when they have to win.
I feel like this Kansas team losing Jalen Daniels, his dual threat ability he was averaging 6.3 yards per carry, which is really good, and also having Devin Neal average 6.2 yards per carry. I feel like the dual threat ability of Jalen Daniels, also with him being a decently efficient passer, really made that Kansas offense look better, and they were leading in that TCU game until he went out. I feel like they're just a way different team with him. He was ended up being in a couple of Heisman conversations before he got injured. I don't think this Kansas defense is just going to do enough to stop the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Cowboys not known for really running the football this season, only having 3.7 yards per carry. But I think Spencer Sanders is one of the better Big 12 quarterbacks. I feel like he's going to be able to throw it a little bit on the Kansas secondary, because I feel like Kansas's overall depth and roster isn't the greatest. They're kind of just living off a quarterback that probably, if he still has any remaining eligibility, I have no idea what his eligibility looks like. He probably should transfer and go to a offense where there is more weapons around him. Honestly, I'm probably going to pick Oklahoma State 45, Kansas 23.
Yeah, I think don't have much else to say on that one. I think you pretty much brought it home.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We will be right back. Back from the break. Going to continue to look at a couple more games. I have 2 more games left on the spreadsheet. Did anyone have anything to say else about Oklahoma State and Kansas?
I think I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. Let's move on to a Friday night matchup between Oregon State and Washington. Anyone want to take the table, start off with maybe a little bit of analysis for these both teams in the Pac-12?
That about Michael Penix.
Oh.
He has 78 quarterback rating, which is 18th amongst all quarterbacks. So I think he's a huge key in this one. The Washington averages 40 points a game, but then to talk about Oregon State a little bit, they have a better defense than Washington does, which I think makes this a matchup a really interesting matchup because Washington has that very explosive offense led by Penix, and Oregon State has a phenomenal defense. And just to name some of these defenders for Oregon State, they have a linebacker for they got a guy, Oladapo. He is leading their team in tackles and also has quite a few sacks for them. I think Washington, though, is going to prevail with the strong offense that averages 40 points. So I got Washington 35, Oregon State, we're going to go 32. Washington's going to squeak this one out.
Logan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. Oregon State, first time in the rankings in almost a decade. Congrats to them, first off. But I will say they have squeaked through by only playing one of the top 7 teams in the Pac-12 so far this year, and that was a 42-16 loss to Utah. That game was on the road, but that was absolute domination from start to finish for them. I will say Washington's offense, like Nevan said, it's been absolutely explosive, fantastic. Their loss, on the other hand, Arizona State, UCLA, both respectable teams. Arizona State, that loss was on the road. I don't think Oregon State necessarily gets here if they play the Oregons, the USCs, the UCLA, the Pac-12. I kind of think this is a ranking less off of the skill of Oregon State, maybe more on the haven't played anybody, got to get a team in there. 6-2 Oregon State looks good. I think this will be a Washington win. I'm going to take Washington here. I'll take them 38-21. I just think the Washington offense overpowers here, and Oregon State kind of gets exposed for not necessarily being a very good football team.
I'm kind of right there with you. This Oregon State offense has not been able to pass all season, having a team total between Goldbranson and Chance Nolan having 12 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Kind of a problem if you can't have an efficient quarterback against a Washington team that can throw the ball around a lot. Michael Penix having 22 touchdowns on the year. It looks like this Oregon State team's a very good pass coverage team, having 38 pass deflections and 10 interceptions, while the Washington Huskies have 25 sacks on the year with only 20 pass deflections and 6 interceptions. I feel like if Washington can get pressure on this Oregon State quarterback, whoever they decide to throw out there on the field for the first drive, I feel like they're going to terrorize them and make bad decisions and not move the ball through the air. And it looks like their running offense is not great on the ground. Adunzi and McMillan are combined for over 1,300 yards on the season with 12 touchdowns each, or 12 touchdowns combined, 6 touchdowns each. And I don't think Washington's really going to need to run the football against this Oregon State team too much. And I feel like Michael Penix is just going to be able to take, honestly, advantage of an Oregon State team that may not be that good, hasn't been too battle-tested other than their game against USC, which I feel like USC makes opponents look better than they actually are in terms of scoring because they just for whatever reason, just don't want to blow out opponents and want to make everything a game. For Pac-12 ratings, I feel like, so the Pac-12 doesn't stay irrelevant, to be honest. I'm going to have Washington in this game, probably 38, Oregon State 21. I still think Oregon State's going to do decent, but I am honestly really confident in this Washington team.
Right on.
All right, last big matchup to talk about. Two teams that are kind of honestly on the downfall now in the ACC. NC State, with them being in between Jack Chambers and Morris III, versus Wake Forest, who might have just had the worst college football playoff or college football game all year, other than maybe that Miami game where they had like 14-12 versus Virginia. That was very bad as well. I guess the ACC is just known for having bad teams that have a lot of turnovers as well. I know Miami also had an 8 turnover game earlier this season. Logan, you want to hit us with anything about any of these two teams?
Yeah, Wake Forest kind of looked like the real deal when they played Clemson. A little double overtime loss. They followed that up with a win against Florida State. Obviously, we kind of know now Florida State really is not that good. Then they got absolutely demolished by Louisville last week. A little confusing, to be honest with you. I do think Wake Forest has been the better team this season. I like Sam Hartman, what he's able to do. Obviously, there's a lot of stock into this game because of what's kind of in line. Both teams fighting for a chance, not to improve their bowl game, because if Clemson ends up going to the college football playoff, one of these two teams potentially could be in a New Year's Six bowl. So actually more on the line than people probably think. But both teams kind of been going in a downward spiral. I'm going to turn to NC State at home. I just kind of like what they do. Turn the ball over a little bit less than Wake Forest. Coming off a win last week against Virginia Tech. It was close, but it's still a win. Looking up and down the schedule, NC State has been able to pull out these close ones all year long. And even teams that, maybe it shouldn't be close, NC State's been able to prevail at the end. I think this is going to be another close, hard-fought game, probably pretty low scoring. I'm going to take NC State to end up pulling it out. I'm going to say 28-27 NC State, and potentially the game of the week. If Georgia and Tennessee didn't exist, I should probably say that.
Nevan, you want to give your analysis on this game?
Yeah, I think a huge playmaker in this one is Sam Hartman, as Berner said. But Sam Hartman, this guy's explosive. For a while, I thought he had a chance before the season. I thought he had a chance to be in the Heisman running. He hasn't been as good as I thought he was going to, but he's still leading this Wake Forest team. They have 2 losses, one being last week to Louisville. Not a good loss, as Louisville's unranked, but in their defense, it was on the road. But still, that there's no excuse to lose 48-21 to Louisville. But their other loss, valid loss, coming against a very good Clemson team, as we already talked about, in double overtime. And that is what I think is a huge part. If this game stays close like I thought, and I think this will, that is a reason why I think Wake Forest will pull this one out. They lost in double overtime to Clemson. And as we all know, Clemson is a huge ACC powerhouse. I think it would be rare if Wake Forest lose another heartbreaker close game like that. They also average a boatload of points, 38 points a game. And to be honest, I don't think NC State has the run game or rushing attack to keep up with them. Wake Forest air game, I think, is just going to go over the top against this NC State defense, and will be too much. I got Wake Forest 21, NC State 14.
Okay, so looking at both these teams all year, it looks like if Wake Forest can score over 30 or 35 points, I think this game ends up being Wake Forest. I think they're able to continue with their amazing passing attack and getting multiple guys involved, just moving down the field with Sam Hartman, who is an elite quarterback and has only had one bad game all year. He was out early this year with, I forget what type of injury it was. It was some weird diagnosis with either his arteries or heart or something. It was something really strange and kind of out of the blue. I think if NC State's going to win this game, they're kind of just going to have to play their football. They are at home, or yes, they are at home this game. Having a home crowd at NC State's kind of helped. I know last year when they played North Carolina, the home crowd there kind of led them back into a comeback win last year. I think if this game becomes close, I'm going to take NC State in one possession win. In one possession games, they are 3-0. And I think if it comes close at the end, I feel like NC State can just control the clock, kind of be a finesse offense, take what's given to them, and come out with the win. If Wake Forest can get their passing attack going and get a decent lead early on or late in the third quarter, I feel like Wake Forest can come away with the game. I think I'm going to go, since Wake Forest had a terrible showing last week, I think I'm going to go Wolfpack 24-22.
Yeah, I like what you said. I think if Wake Forest comes out clicking on offense, obviously it might be a tough one for NC State. I just think NC State's been able to keep every opponent into a close game, pull it out late. I think it's going to be low and defensive, and I honestly think if Nevan's score predictions right there, or mine even, and we're in like the 20-point range, a little more, a little less, I really like NC State's odds. They just can't get into a shootout with Sam Hartman.
I think both you guys are absolutely right. It kind of depends what the how the game goes, who does what happens with what offense, who maybe causes more turnovers. Both of them aren't very good at forcing turnovers, so not a scare for the Wake Forest, as Louisville. They had 6 straight turnovers that game in the third quarter and ended up scoring 35 points, which is just 1 out of 1 million. So. And before that game, I'm pretty sure Sam Hartman only had 2 picks on the year, which is crazy.
Right on. All right.
Some live games going on right now. We have UTEP versus Rice in a boring Conference USA matchup. Both teams around 500. Rice currently leading 30-27, 6:52 left in the fourth quarter. That game should be a good one. And then right now, Coastal Carolina leads Appalachian State 35-14 with 13:10 left in the fourth quarter on ESPN. Coastal Carolina having Grayson McCall, who was a good player last year, is coming back. Maybe he can make some noise for maybe like the O'Brien Trophy or something like that. He's been a pretty good player in his career in general at Coastal. Some MAC action earlier this week. We had Central beat Northern Illinois 35-22, and then Bowling Green beating Western Michigan in a really low-scoring affair, 13-9. And then on Tuesday, Ball State beat Kent State 27-20, and Ohio beat Buffalo 45-24. I love this MAC action stuff, or MACtion stuff, as a lot of people say. I like to say MAC action. Putting these teams kind of in some prime time during the week. You know, maybe if you're bored on your couch and aren't doing anything, you can flip on, one of these teams. Central, Western, and Eastern Michigan are all local teams for us, so it's kind of nice to see them and how they play out too.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyone else have anyone want to talk about any Big Ten games maybe, or maybe one of our like homer teams or games maybe that might be a sleeper or might lead to a coach firing, anything like that?
I mean, I don't mean to, pat my own back or my team's back or anything, but I think Michigan's got a good opponent this week after knocking off the little brother last week pretty dominantly. I think they're going to have a nice breeze through this week, hopefully. They got the Rutgers Scarlet Knights this week, and this one, although it is in Piscataway, I think Michigan will run away with this one, as it's been proven that Blake Corum is impossible to be stopped. And if J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum get going early, I think Rutgers might need to start packing up just beyond a little halftime. So I got the Wolverines in this one, rather by a lot. But, I just wanted to put that out there.
Looking at Logan, you go first.
I don't see any way that. I mean, there is a way, but I don't think it's likely at all that Michigan and Ohio State are not meeting in the last game of the season at 11-0. I think both teams are going to completely blow through their schedule. The hardest game left, probably Maryland for Ohio State. I think that should be pretty easy. Michigan's probably Illinois. But honestly, I think you are going to see an 11-0 Michigan and 11-0 Ohio State, which I hope you bring me onto the show to talk about that one before that game because, I'm going to have so much to say. But I am excited to watch an 11-0 matchup, in a game that's at Ohio State this year, not snowing. We're going to see. So hopefully we'll get some big wins from Ohio State and Michigan. Keep building up the hype for that game.
Yeah, I agree to your point. Michigan, I mean, they do kind of have a tough game before Ohio State, but that might prepare them well, even though Illinois is a completely different schemed offense than Ohio State. I think it'll get them ready for a better defense. And, I mean, Maryland's no joke either. Their pass coverage is really good, but, I mean, C.J. Stroud probably won't get touched all game and end up throwing for somehow like 400 yards and like 20 touchdowns. So I think both teams are probably going to – I agree with your statement there. Both teams are probably going to be 11-0 going into the last November, our regular season game, and end up playing for a spot in the Big Ten East versus either Illinois or I don't even know who's going to win the Big Ten West. It's kind of wide open for the teams at the top, whether it's Purdue, Illinois, or what's the other team? Minnesota, or even Iowa's probably not in the running anymore.
No, definitely. Well, I mean they're 2-3, so is Minnesota, but Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, all at 2-3. I think if you throw in a second loss to Illinois against Michigan, that puts them at 2 losses. So I think most likely the Big Ten West will probably be decided in 2 weeks with Purdue and Illinois. That'll be a interesting game to watch there. But yeah, the Big Ten West will be interesting. I honestly don't think it matters who they send out because I think, like most years, the Big Ten East will probably stomp on the Big Ten West. But,
Maryland plays Wisconsin too, and I feel like Maryland will win that game. Even though I'm pretty sure, is Talia still hurt?
I don't know.
All right,
honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know if it really matters.
Moving along with this one, because I talked about the big brother in this one, it's only right and it's only just that I talk about little brother coming off a loss. But a point to make of emphasis for the Spartans. I don't think as many people are looking beyond this week for the Spartans. They're sitting at 3-5, coming off a brutal loss to Michigan. But with 2 top 20 teams left on their schedule, this could be a struggle to make a bowl game this year. I mean, I hate to say it, but with Illinois this week, Illinois coming in at 3-score favorites and ending the season against Penn State, and that one's at Beaver Stadium, I should say. I think Michigan State is closer to missing bowl game than people think. I mean, this week they're in Champaign, and to end the season they're in Happy Valley. So they got Rutgers and Indiana between those two, both winnable games, but they're going to need to beat either Illinois or Penn State to make a bowl game. So I think that is a interesting point to point out here with the Spartans coming up on this late season push.
I will
say with how top heavy college football has been this year, though, I think there is a chance at 5-7 the Spartans potentially do get a bowl game. Looking at how hard that schedule's been, but kind of like you said, if they're rolling in 5-7, 6-6, I think we're looking at a quick lane bowl for Michigan State this year. Obviously, not the season they were looking for, but yeah, this game against Illinois all of a sudden becomes pretty big because honestly, I don't see them beating Penn State. I see the way for them to win this week. Luckily, Illinois kind of plays into the strengths of Michigan State. Illinois can't really throw the football great. We all know how bad that Michigan State secondary is. In a low-scoring game, you never know. Peyton Thorne might be able to make a throw or two. Keon Coleman and Reed possibly be able to keep this thing close. I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people think.
I think this game is worth – this is in that beginning evening slate late afternoon slate, this 3:30 p.m. game, I think this could be a game that is worth tuning in your early afternoon. I mean, between Michigan State on the brink of who knows what with their season finishing up, and Illinois making that late push. I mean, they're sitting at 7-1, making a late push for the Big Ten West. I think this is a game worth looking at. I mean, maybe not spending your entire Saturday at, but I mean, it's definitely worth a shot. Like, Illinois got one loss to Indiana. I mean, they could come into that if they win out. They could easily come into Indianapolis at that Big Ten West game and make some noise to hopefully get a good bowl game this year for the Illini.
I don't think the hype around Illinois is exactly where it should be. I still don't think they've really played anybody, and kind of what I said about Oregon State. Like they haven't dominated their way here. They've kind of just limped into the rankings here this week, and we'll see. I mean, this is definitely right now the favorite to beat, win the Big Ten West. But is this really the team that you think has the best chance to beat Ohio State in Indianapolis this year?
I don't think they'll be playing Ohio State there.
All right. Well, even if you go the other way,
they will be either.
If they're playing Michigan, is this the team that you think has the best chance to beat Michigan?
They also play Purdue as well, who probably will take advantage, try to at least throw the ball for 300 yards. And
all I'm saying is I think this Michigan State-Illinois game is worth a glance here on Saturday.
I'll maybe watch it for 5 minutes, and then Michigan State doesn't get any positive yards in the first half because the Illinois defense is just absolutely locking it up. We all saw that in the second half of that Michigan game, that Michigan State didn't even have positive yards till the fourth quarter, which is why Michigan won that game defensively and with running the ball with Blake Corum and McCarthy. They did not win that game dominating on offense. They dominated on defense, and were just chipping away at the Michigan State defense as well.
I wouldn't particularly say the Illinois run game or defense is exactly comparable to Michigan's, though.
That secondary for Illinois is pretty good. Like, I think you're overlooking Illinois a little bit, saying they're. I do agree that they're kind of just like a result of them not playing too many hard opponents, but they still come out winning, limping games. But they're not also. They're kind of similar to Michigan in where they're not going to try to purposely, or their goal isn't to drop 40 points and win through the air. They're trying to use Chase Brown, who's been really good, probably a top 5 running back in the country, and just keep the ball and force other teams to beat them defensively and stop their run game.
Yeah, we'll see this week. That's going to be an exciting one. I don't mind people having the Spartans winning this game, though. I do think this is going to be a very close football game. Just because of the Illinois style, I would be shocked if they covered that 17-point spread.
They might not score 17 points.
Yeah, is Illinois even going to score 17 points?
It's probably going to be like a 14-0 game, and we're just going to me and Logan are just going to be crying at on the Sunday reaction show.
Yeah, we'll see, but I don't even know if Illinois gets to that 17.5 points, so we'll see. But
I kind of have a interesting game to bring up. 10:30, so I might not watch it live. I might have to watch the recap of it because as of late, I've been going to bed at like 12 o'clock on a Saturday and won't finish this game. But we have UCLA versus Arizona State. Arizona State firing their coach really early into the season. Ended up picking up a win against Washington and then losing a close one to Stanford. And winning against Colorado on the road, which isn't easy considering where Colorado's located. I know they're a really garbage football team this year, but Arizona State 2-1 since is it 2-1 or 2-2 since firing their head coach? It was either the Utah or
I believe it's 2-2.
Oh no, they fired their coach after the Eastern Michigan loss, so it's 2-3, but they're 2-1 in their last 3. And playing UCLA, who they ended up, I know they won last week against Stanford in a 38-13 game. But Arizona State being at home, spread only set at 11-4, UCLA. I know Charbonnet and Robinson are really good playmakers for the Bruins, but I think this has some potential, cause some havoc, and UCLA gets upset with Arizona State, kind of in their win, scoring 40 points. If they can get the offense rolling against UCLA, maybe, just maybe, some chaos happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Exciting game out west.
Unfortunately, no, I got to go against you on this one. I mean, I think DTR and Charbonnet are too much for this Arizona team. I mean, in the last 5 games, they put up almost 40 in every single one. 38, 45, 42, 40, and 45. Former Michigan running back, worth noting, Zach Charbonnet. This guy can rack up those yards, I'll tell you, man. 7.5 over the whole season and 8.2 versus conference opponents. That almost means he's averaging a first down every time he touches the ball. That, I think, will be
better than Blake. Would be better than Blake Corum in the Big Ten. Just kidding. Actually, who knows? If Blake Corum and Charbonnet were to switch roles, maybe. I think Corum fits in better with Michigan, him being like a shorter, just kind of find the hole and, make something happen out of it. Where
right on.
I feel like UCLA is more of an option team, and Charbonnet is just able to get the ball a lot more. Not saying that McCarthy and the Michigan offense don't run option, but Michigan's taking a lot more snaps under center, and McCarthy handing the ball off to Corum. Oh, and Edwards too. I mentioned Edwards because he also Michigan born and raised in West Bloomfield, I believe. So.
Yep, former Laker.
West Virginia and Iowa State. Two bottom of the Big 12 teams, but West Virginia had a good showing against TCU last week, and Iowa State able to keep it close against these Big 12 teams. Honestly, super low-scoring games like the 24-21 Texas win for Texas, 10-9 against Kansas State, which Kansas State ended up winning. Like a lot of these teams that Iowa State play, they're not winning the games, but they're keeping it really low scoring and making it a contest for the Big 12 conference. Do you think they could pick up their first conference win of the season against West Virginia?
Yeah, I honestly like Iowa State to win this game. When you look up and down their Big 12 opponents, they've only played the top half of the conference. Finally get a game against the lower half. I think that defense prevails, and Iowa State ends up pulling one out here.
I'm with you there, Boone. You hit the nail right on the head, man.
I feel like JT Daniels is just gonna struggle, and Deckers is gonna continue with like his 50 passing attempts per game, and Iowa State is gonna come out with a win there. I feel like they're also at home to 7, according to I believe ESPN uses MGM, so. Might have to go to Jack Trice Stadium. Tickets low as $29 for the two bottom teams in the Big 12. The Big 12. I guess a good Group of 5 matchup here. UCF, one of the two Group of 5 teams in the college football top 25, playing at Memphis. UCF favored by 3.5. Do we think the Knights, after getting a big win against Cincinnati, are going to come and continue on their little hot streak here?
I'm going to have to go with UCF in this one. Newly ranked, I like them on the road against Memphis. Memphis only 4-4. Obviously lost to Tulane, lost to Mississippi State. But I am going to have to take UCF to pull this one out.
Nevan, any words on this game?
No, not too much on this one, really. Yeah, I think the newly ranked UCF team, I think, will prevail. As Plumlee, the quarterback for UCF, a transfer from Ole Miss, I think he'll lead this UCF offense to a road win.
Yes, they're playing at Memphis.
That's what I thought. Yeah, road win and keep helping UCF to improve in the rankings and hopefully put UCF a little further up.
Harvey was a big play factor in that Cincinnati game. Ended up getting the game-winning touchdown. Plumlee being a good dual threat quarterback. I just feel like Memphis, who was better in the past in the American Athletic Conference than recent years. Memphis just coming off a 10-point loss. It looks like it was 2 weeks ago against Tulane at Tulane. Maybe took the bye week to bounce back and maybe making it a close game. But I feel like UCF is also a pretty good American team. I feel like also Cincinnati was a little overrated at the beginning of the year. Obviously, you found out Arkansas wasn't that good at the beginning of the year either. UCF's only loss being to East Carolina and Louisville, which are two all right teams. Any other games that you guys want to touch on while we have about 8 minutes left?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything that needed to be covered, and yeah.
You think Jimbo picks up his 6th loss playing Florida at 12 at Texas A&M?
I can see that one going either way. I do think he does. I like Florida here. Jimbo just has not been able to pull out very many games, so I will take Florida on that one.
I just feel like the Jimbo Fisher offense that continues to be very hated against and not leading to a lot of success. Florida also had a great start to the year, and then once they took that loss to Kentucky, things kind of spiraled downhill for Florida. I don't know, kind of not an important game. Maybe some bowl eligibility here as they're both in the SEC. If Florida picks up their 5th win, they'll be 5-4. If Texas loses, they'll be 3-6. Do we think Texas A&M is going to be a bowl team at the end of the season? They currently have left on their schedule Florida, Auburn, UMass, and LSU.
I do not. I think losses here to Florida and LSU puts them at 7 losses and ends up knocking them out.
Anything you got to say, Nevan?
I'm with you right there. I just now realized that I've been muted for quite a while now. That is a very large shame because I've been providing input for a while. But, yep, I'm with you there, Boone. And, that's a shame that I've been muted for so long. That's all I'm gonna say.
Kentucky plays Missouri. Who knows what happens in that game? Kentucky just continues to be like taking 1 step forward and then 2 steps back with their season. Appalachian State just scored, making it 35-21 in that game. And Rice ended up beating UTEP. I guess we want to talk about UConn maybe getting some bowl eligibility. They're playing UMass this week, who's 1-7 on the year and hasn't been ever a good football program in the FBS. Do we think that UConn can maybe pull off and get to a bowl game this year for the first time? And I don't even know how long.
Well, Michigan does only schedule elite teams and they're out of conference. So, UConn's a great team. Honestly, I think they will get to bowl eligibility just because, you got to boost the look of Michigan. So, yeah, I'm going to say UConn gets there.
I'm pretty sure they have 1 guaranteed loss, being Liberty, who hopefully ends up getting ranked in the college football playoff rankings this week. And then they play Army, which, it doesn't take a lot of effort defensively to beat Army. I feel like the way to beat Army is honestly to get into a shootout with them. So maybe UConn can pull out and get that bowl eligibility for, I don't even want to look up the statistic because it'll probably just make me cry looking at it and knowing that how the hell is this football team going to make a freaking playoff game. Or not a playoff game, sorry, a bowl game. Postseason play, we'll call it that. Nothing else to say here. I feel like we covered pretty much everything. If there's a game that ends up being good or causing a lot of controversy, like maybe Pitt upsetting Syracuse, and Syracuse can end up being 6-6 after like the 6-0 start to the season. They end up losing 3 straight. I know I'm gonna predict them going 6-6 just because that's like the most Syracuse football thing to do. But I got nothing else to say. Yeah. So I guess
Yeah,
that's gonna.
I got nothing except just for an apology that I didn't realize I was muted for this time, but I'm glad that I could hear myself and my thoughts to myself, although no one else could.
How long were you muted for?
I'm not too sure, but
I feel like it
it was
wasn't
a
that
pleasure.
long.
It was a pleasure being on your show today, Noah, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, you will definitely be on again. I appreciated your analysis and your pulling up statistical data for the teams mentioned, especially in the key matchups that we kind of focused on earlier in the show. Logan,
Sure, man.
any last words?
No, I have nothing else. Thanks for having me back on, and looking forward to being on here again.
Also, I didn't mention Nevan is a varsity football player for Heartland. He ended up playing wide receiver, starting there in a lot of games, getting a lot of reps there, and then ended up playing DB in a couple of games. And again, against one of our rivals, Howell, ended up coming almost with a pick six. So definitely gonna be. He is a junior, so he's gonna be back next year for Heartland football, and he hopefully leads us to another good season, hopefully finishing with a positive record there.
Yeah, man, for sure. Already looking forward to next season and looking to keep the streak in the playoffs and hopefully get that playoff win we've been looking for a few years now.
Yes, if you I guess a statistic to pull up here, Heartland has not won a playoff game since 2008, where they ended up winning 2 and making it to the regional finals for Division 1. 11 man. That's gonna, I guess, bring us to the end of the show, guys. I'm really happy that everyone hopped on, that both of you, when I asked you. I think it was a really good show.
Yeah,
sure.
I think so too. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll talk again for sure.
Yes, hopefully we can get you guys on for Sunday. I don't know what you guys' schedules are looking like.
Yeah, I'll see, and we'll be able to let you know.
Yeah, I'll take a look. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you guys. This is going to be the Engage 8 podcast, going on for a really long time now. Yeah, thanks for listening.